Thanks for joining us. I'm Megan Roberts. We begin tonight in Kugaaruk, Nunavut, where schools and offices are closed as the hamlet grapples with a state of emergency. It was declared on Sunday morning after salt water infiltrated the water treatment plant. Senior Administrative Officer Michelle Byers says that's due to recent high supermoon tides. Roughly 5,000 liters of bottled water is being flown in by the Nunavut government. The hamlet has some water supplies for residents, and the local co-op is also offering its support.
What we'll do is continue to support both the hamlet and the rest of the community members as well as we can, whether with that's us bringing in more water to deliver to the town, or if that's us helping either deliver water once it's been brought in.
Kagan says the community has been resilient. Some people are tapping into nearby springs and lakes or melting ice as they normally do in the winter. Byers also says the hamlet is preparing to pump water from a lake, which she expects will meet the community's needs. A boil water notice remains in place for water drawn from any source. Nunavut Emergency Management is encouraging people to conserve bottled water for essential use only and stock up on 3 days' worth of supplies. Power outages are happening more frequently in Rankin Inlet, Nunavut. The hamlet has had 6 outages in 6 weeks, with half the community's generators out of service until next year. Bianca McEwen reports.
It's dark in Rankin Inlet these days. That's because the hamlet has been experiencing more power outages, especially, Nelly Kugaaruk says, where she lives, in Area 5.
You just go, another one, and then you just wait for the power to go back on. It's quite frustrating.
She is a homeowner and worries about her pipes freezing. When outages happen, she uses a kugaaruk to stay warm. But recently, she bought a generator to get through future outages.
Lots of people are concerned. There's lots of homeowners, and I've heard some talk about having a backup generator.
Also concerned is Michael Scholdice, a Rankin Inlet councillor. He recently bought a small generator which can run for 10 to 15 hours when the power goes out. He says the growing population has put a strain on the hamlet's power generators.
We have the same equipment we've had for I don't know how many years. And then you think of the dilemma, well, that's the same in every community. Here, the government in Nunavut is looking at a huge capital expense to replace all the aging infrastructure. And part of it is the generating plants. You know, what can they do?
Ernest Douglas is the president and CEO of Kugaaruk Energy Corporation. He says the power outages are happening because 2 out of the 4 generators have been out of service since September. He says one is expected to return to service in early February once parts arrive. But the replacement unit for the other is expected to come next fall.
What we're going to do is issue a public service announcement around this, just to prepare folks that are in Rankin to let them know, just be transparent that we are going to have a bit of a difficult or challenging winter.
Kugaaruk says with the generators down, she worries about what will happen when it gets colder.
I just hope it gets resolved soon. I imagine we'll have a lot of power outages this winter if we don't have the right number of generators operating.
Bianca McEwen, CBC News, Iqaluit.
A couple of earthquakes shook Yukoners over the weekend. The first was on Saturday afternoon near the Yukon-Alaska border. Earthquakes Canada registered it as a 7.0 magnitude earthquake. Then on Sunday, a 5.7 magnitude aftershock struck. Chris McIntyre reports.
Across Haines Junction, houses and paintings shook as the southern Yukon village sits nearest to the epicenter of the earthquakes from Alaska. For many indoors, they felt the shaking, with some running outside.
So I was working on my computer, and then suddenly it's moving. I thought a truck is coming from the parking lot, but it's getting stronger and stronger. And so I went outside, and I've seen all the shelves are moving and everything, and so that was a little bit scary.
Jane Mendoza says this is not the first time she's experienced an earthquake in Haines Junction, but it is the largest. No property damage was reported and emergency services weren't called. Neil Louise was serving a customer when he felt the quake.
So I was working here. Yeah, I have one customer here, and then we just felt the shaking here, so we ran outside immediately.
And over in Whitehorse, Izzy Baker felt it too.
Well, I was downstairs in the basement in the lunchroom, and I could see the ceiling like shaking, and like the water cooler was like bubbling, and I was just like, what is going on?
According to some that spoke with CBC News, people who were outdoors or driving say they didn't notice it too much. The Yukon RCMP confirmed that no injuries have been reported. The Department of Education has kept Whitehorse Elementary School closed as a precautionary measure. Chris McIntyre, CBC News, Dawson City.
A former school teacher from Sanakiloak, Nunavut, sentenced to jail for sexually abusing his students, is getting a new trial. The decision came down on Friday and was announced today. Johnny Miko was sentenced to 29 years in prison for 14 counts of sex-related charges in 2023. They're stemming from incidents at Nuiyak Elementary School between 1980 and 2007. He appealed his conviction and sentence. Part of his claim was based on the trial judge allowing evidence outside the scope of his charges. The Nunavut Court of Appeal found that Miko did not receive a fair trial, and it has ordered a new one. This will be at least his third trial for the charges. Miko was found guilty of 27 charges in 2015, but won an appeal on that conviction in 2021, and a new trial was ordered. Iqalumiut rallied together on the National Day of Remembrance and Action on Violence Against Women over the weekend. It's to recognize the 14 women who died in a misogynistic massacre in Montreal in 1989, as well as other victims of gender-based violence. A walk and remembrance ceremony was held in Iqaluit. The CBC's Mahnur Mubarak has more.
Iqaluit showed up and raised their voices, rallying against gender-based violence. In Nunavut, the rate of violence against women is at least 13 times higher than the rest of Canada, according to the Kulit Nunavut Status of Women Council, who organized the event. Amber Kugaaruk is its president. She says she's a victim of violence herself and is sure that others at the event have been affected by it in some way.
You, a family member, a friend, or someone you care about, has undoubtedly had to deal with violence, and this truly hurts me.
Kugaaruk says that talking about abuse can help stop it. Government officials and community organizations partnered with the council to host the gathering, which involved a walk and ended with a remembrance event at the Nunatasunakutani Museum. There were also performances from the Inukjuk drum dancers and other speeches from community members. Rebecca Vivi opened up about her own experience of dealing with abuse that left her with cuts and bruises.
I've kept this secret for so long. Today, I reveal it. And I'm known as a comedian and a joker, but I want to release what I've been holding back and have not been sharing.
Mary Claire Gilbo was one of the performers singing at the event and says that coming to these types of gatherings helps people see the raw and real emotions coming from survivors.
We learn as people that, like, yes, this is a thing, but when you come to these events and really hear the perspectives of everyone that has gone through these things, it really just affects you, and it really makes you aware of how, like, raw and, you know, how the emotion can be coming from these people.
As for Vivi, who shared her story, she's encouraging others to stand together and to support one another. Mahnur Mubarak, CBC News, Iqaluit.
People in downtown Yellowknife also gathered this weekend to commemorate the massacre at the École Polytechnique and speak out against gender-based violence in the Northwest Territories. The NWT consistently has one of the highest rates of gender-based violence in Canada, and it's a number that's trending upwards in recent years.
We have nearly 12 times the national average of intimate partner violence. This is self-reported data, meaning that many experiences don't get reported, so this number is likely higher. For those of us Indigenous peoples in the room, we need no introduction to violence against Indigenous women and girls. We don't need the statistics or the reports or the glossy frameworks. We, unfortunately, often know this in our families, in our communities, and sometimes even in our own bodies.
Yakalaya Newmark says this is something that should not be normalized. The vigil included a rose-laying ceremony and a moment of silence. The Vatican made headlines in November when it announced it was returning items of cultural significance to First Nations, Inuit, and Métis in Canada. This weekend, a shipment of 62 items arrived in Montreal. The CBC's Juanita Taylor was there.
Snow falls softly as a crate of precious cargo is offloaded on the tarmac in Montreal. Indigenous leaders and members of their community welcoming back dozens of cultural items after a century away. An emotional moment for Dwayne Smith, who led the repatriation efforts for his Inuvialuit people.
I was just trying to get our kayak home. I think the magnitude is starting to hit home in regards to the significance of this.
This ancient sealskin kayak and other Indigenous items were sent to the Vatican in 1925 as part of a global exhibition, but were never returned. Negotiations to get them back resulted in a much bigger victory for Indigenous people. Altogether, 62 items belonging to the Inuit, First Nations, and Métis are now back in Canada.
These items arrived not merely as pieces of history, but as symbols of resilience, identity, and living memory.
A significant step, some say, in the ongoing reconciliation process. Ottawa is pledging to continue efforts to repatriate other cultural objects.
But Canada needs to do more, and countries around the world where these are housed, whether it's Britain or elsewhere, also need to step up.
4 First Nations youth were among those to accompany the objects back to Canada.
As spiritual people, we have an understanding that these aren't just artifacts.
Katisha Paul says she felt honored to have taken part.
As young people, we're ready to open up our hearts and our minds to learning about these processes because we will be the caretakers moving forward.
The cultural objects are now at the Museum of History in Gatineau. An Inuit delegation will get a private viewing of its 14 pieces Monday before deciding on their final destination. Juanita Taylor, CBC News, Montreal.
An Anglican bishop in the north says the Vatican's move is wise. Alexander Pryor is the bishop of the Diocese of the Arctic. He spoke with CBC News before the artifacts were brought to Canada.
It's something that leaders of all institutions have to take very seriously, the way that artifacts of a cultural value in the past were collected and stored and put on display, sometimes as educational pieces, sometimes as trophies, and we need to come to terms with that.
Pryor says cultural artifacts belong in the communities with the people who made them. A man from Tuktoyaktuk NWT has been charged in relation to a bootleg alcohol bust. Police say the alcohol was purchased in Dawson City, Yukon. Tuktoyaktuk RCMP say they seized more than 31 liters of vodka when searching a home in the partially dry community back in November. The man has been charged with unlawful sale and supply of alcohol. Tuktoyaktuk is one of 10 restricted communities in the NWT when it comes to alcohol.
CBC Yellowknife is opening its doors on December 12th. Meet the people behind your community news during Trailbreaker and Trails End. Enjoy live music, grab a bite to eat, and watch our radio hosts go live from 6 to 9 a.m. and 4 to 6:30 p.m. Record a holiday video greeting for Northbeat and help make the season kind by bringing a non-perishable food item to support Food Rescue Yellowknife. See you on December 12th at CBC North in Yellowknife.
Enjoy this festive season.
Coming? Where? Why, to the North Pole, of course.
Enjoy the magic.
Happy birthday.
Hilarity.
I triple dog dare you.
We're all in for a very big treat.
Enjoy the excitement.
Tremendous, gargantuan, spectacular.
And wonder.
From the moment I met you, it's been an adventure.
Enjoy the holidays. Watch free on CBC Gem.
If there's one thing I know about Canadians, it's that we're kind. We want to help.
It doesn't take a big star.
Or millions of dollars.
All it takes is one can.
$1.
Or even 1 hour of your time.
In every corner of this country, people give.
To their friends, to their families, to total strangers.
And this season, we will give again.
Starting December 5th, help us make the season kind.
Find ways to give to food banks in your community at cbc.ca/kind.
Where does bravery live? It lives inside Cynthia Appia, who refuses to let the high cost of sports slow her down.
Welcome to the assembly.
Hell yeah, let's go.
What made you want to be interviewed by 40 neurodivergent interviewers?
Whoa. This is the most authentic conversation.
Oh, you make me cry.
The first session of the 36th Yukon Legislative Assembly kicked off today. The fall sitting comes only 2 weeks after the new cabinet was sworn in. The Yukon Party holds 14 of the legislature's 21 seats, which means it's setting the Yukon record for the largest government caucus in territorial history. Virginie has more.
With only a few weeks left before the end of the year, the Yukon Party is squeezing in its first sitting of the Legislative Assembly as the new territorial government. Today started with the election of a new House Speaker, Yvonne Clark. She's the first MLA of Filipino descent to be elected as Speaker in Canadian history. Then we heard some of the government priorities in a speech from the throne delivered by Commissioner Adeline Weber. A lot of it is regurgitation of what was already outlined in the Yukon Party's platform. The new government hinted that it will put the brakes on a number of programs and initiatives started by the last territorial government, including a rent cap and a recycling program. We also heard about tackling the housing market and insulating Yukoners from proposed power rate hikes by Yukon Energy. But how the new government will do all that exactly? Well, we expect to hear more on that during the sitting as the new government introduces a supplementary budget. And yes, it's a fair question whether there's enough time in this short sitting to introduce, pass, vote, debate a supplementary budget. But Premier Curry Dixon said that there was no other option at this point. He said that the government needs to receive spending authority before the spring sitting to avoid running out of money. Meanwhile, NDP leader Kate White, as the official opposition, told reporters she will not be supporting the budget after hearing today's speech. White said the Yukon Party is taking a direction that is deeply worrying. The NDP leader will be the first to respond to that speech tomorrow. The government is expected to introduce the budget as well tomorrow. Dixon told reporters that he doesn't want to sit until Christmas and that he hopes to have everything wrapped up before the end of next week. Virginie Anne, CBC News, Whitehorse.
A key piece of Liberal legislation has hit a major snag. CBC News has learned that the Justice Minister brokered a deal to pass the Combating Hate Act without the approval of the Prime Minister's office, making its future unclear. Kate McKenna reports.
Canada's Justice Minister is in the hot seat.
Mr. Speaker, this particular bill, since inception, was designed to combat hate in this country.
Sean Fraser's anti-hate bill C9 is potentially in limbo because of a deal gone sideways. The bill seeks to crack down on hate, making it illegal to promote hatred against identifiable groups and illegal to intimidate people outside places of worship.
I look forward to collaborating with all parties in a minority parliament, and I will look forward very much to the recommendations from the Justice Committee as they consider potential amendments to the current bill.
The bill needs another party's support to pass. The Bloc Québécois says they made a deal with the Liberals for support. In exchange, the law would be amended to remove a religious exemption from hate speech laws. The Bloc has long sought to remove the religious exemption, saying religion could be used as a cover for promoting hate, such as homophobia and anti-Semitism.
When you have a deal with a minister, that minister represents the government, and you should normally be safe with it.
But sources say Fraser's office didn't get buy-in from the Prime Minister, putting any deal to pass the legislation on hold.
I think the Liberals have been hearing the millions of Canadians that they've alienated with this agreement to erode long-standing religious protections that will inevitably infringe on people's right to practice their faith.
Some faith communities fear removing the religious exemption could lead to some scripture essentially being criminalized.
If we were going down that particular route, then you're going to be prosecuting religious leaders in every mosque, in every church, in every synagogue.
The bill was on track to pass through committee by the holidays, a key step on the way to becoming law. But the House of Commons is set to adjourn until late January later this week, meaning the bill could be pushed to next year. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
A teen social media ban begins later this week in Australia, but major platforms are already shutting down thousands of accounts of users under 16. As Deanna Sumanak-Johnson tells us, it's aimed at protecting children online, and some people think Canada could follow suit.
It's been an emotional few days for many Australian teens as Meta started shutting down 500,000 Instagram and Facebook accounts for people under 16.
For me, it was my community and my lifeline.
Australia is bringing in the world's first teen social media ban, with companies facing multi-million-dollar fines if they don't take reasonable steps to comply. Australia's initial list of platforms includes 10 well-known sites. Each will decide how it confirms ages, with options like video verification or submitting government-issued ID. This tech analyst says Australia is a litmus test for the rest of the world.
If Australia can pull it off, you can bet that Canada is going to be pushing a similar agenda here at some point in the new year.
So do you know when Australia is implementing the...
Jenny Perez would like Canada to heed Australia's example. Perez is a founder of Unplugged Canada, advocating for limits to children's access to social media.
Australia leading this international movement is giving hope to everybody. Many parents felt defeated. They felt that it was too late to change. It was too late to change the norm.
But others argue that an outright ban might make social media more enticing.
I think we're at risk of creating a bit of a forbidden fruit aspect to social media.
Even among teens, there's no consensus.
Like they're on screens a lot, like younger kids, and I feel like it's not really good for them.
I use social media a lot for like sports. A lot of coaches can like find you and scout you through Instagram and stuff.
The Trudeau government tried to put some guardrails on social media companies with a controversial online harms bill, but it never passed after concerns over free speech. A spokesperson for the federal justice minister says they hope to bring an updated bill before the end of the year with measures to combat extortion, sexual exploitation, and deepfakes, but they did not say how it would address social media. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
The Northwest Territories government says it'll reimburse any school board that chooses to offer students and staff alternative drinking water, even if their water hasn't yet been tested for lead. The offer came on Friday after test results from Yellowknife's Mildred Hall School showed elevated levels of lead. The NWT government began testing for lead in school drinking water last spring. Of the 7 schools that have gotten results back so far, 6 showed lead levels concerning enough to require intervention. Though the NWT government says one of those schools, the Alexis Aeromaker School in Wekwati, only had one sink in need of fixing, and that sink wasn't being used. Today, NWT Education Minister Caitlin Cleveland explained why alternative drinking water wasn't offered earlier.
When we acknowledged that there are identified the 3 schools in the spring that were of concern, they were immediately taken offline. The other numbers that we had seen did not raise red flags, did not raise concerns. So we addressed the schools of concern right away. I absolutely wish that we had, hindsight is 2020, that we knew now what we knew then rather, what we know now. But we're acting quickly. We're making sure that we're acting quickly with the results we have, that we're communicating transparently to Northerners, and that we're ensuring that we're prioritizing the safety of staff and students.
Cleveland says her own child's school is the only one she knows of that has accepted the offer of alternative drinking water so far. Government officials say they're aiming to test the water in all NWT schools by the end of this year. The Arctic Winter Games International Committee has approved a shift to a 3-year cycle through to 2032. The Games have previously been held every 2 years. This means after the coming competition in the spring, the next Games won't be held until 2029. The president of the Arctic Winter Games International Committee says the games themselves aren't going anywhere.
It's really about supporting the long-term sustainability of the games and maintaining the quality and the integrity of it. It was a very lengthy discussion, I can tell you that. It was not an easy decision to make.
Rada says COVID shutdowns complicated the scheduling of the games, along with the Northwest Territories' decision to pull out of hosting in 2028. The organization says it's also working on a high-level review of operations to allow it to keep going for years to come. And that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, go to cbc.ca/north. Thank you for watching. I'm Megan Roberts. Have a good night.